Hi, this is Greg Koopman. Today I'm going to talk about the hotkeys and how to use them to your advantage. I'm going to go over a simple example of setting up a hotkey that provides you with a select top 1000 rows after you highlight the table name and press the Control F1 key. Okay, I've already set this up, and I must say that it's a little bit fickle the way it seems to operate. So I'll give you a couple things that I experienced that how it did not work, and just take it with a grain of salt. I don't see much documentation on this method, but I think if you can harness it, you might have something really nice and help your productivity in development and troubleshooting. Okay, so let's just first of all start off with an example of something that's built in already to your SQL server is the Alt F1 key, which brings up help on whatever you have highlighted. So if you have in this particular database, AdventureWorks 2012, I have a view up here, and there's person, business, entity, address, right? So if I'm going to press Alt F1, and as you see, it's the same as saying SP help space person, business, entity, address table. And look at all the information I get. Isn't that kind of cool? Yeah, I think so too. So, but that's not really what I want. A lot of times I get called in to do troubleshooting or just figure out how these queries work. And I really have to look at the tables. So, and this is a good example here because I have like 5 tables. But let's go back to that SP help. How did that happen? Well, when you go to options and you go to environment, keyboard, and query shortcuts, if you look under Alt F1, you have SP help. Okay? Now what I've already done is set up one for Control F1, which is a hotkey select table. Okay, I'm going to show you how that works. So so that's why we're able to use Alt 1 and highlight any table, and it will give us that this help information. But now let's look at the one I set up. This is where I wanted to see the top 1000 rows. So now let me highlight that and do Control F1. Okay, now I have an error. Okay, so let's see what happened here. I've been messing around with this. This is a problem with this thing. When you make a change, you need to the code here, you have to close your window, because it seems like if you're in the window and you make the change, and let's say you're trying to get this to work, and it doesn't work. It gives you an error when you go to hit the hotkey, and then you go change it, and then you go back to that same window. You'll probably experience the same error, even though you might have put it incorrectly. So you need to close that window and then reopen. Okay. So I close the windows, and I'm going to go back into that same view and open it in a new window. And we're going to say create, and I'm just going to go there, and I'm going to go and highlight the schema and the product model. I'm going to do Control F1, and there it is, top 1000 rows. Okay, so now I can come down here and do join to some other table, right? Like product model, product description culture, Control F1, and that gives it to me. I can also go just hover and show the name of the table, Control F1, and that didn't work. Okay, so it needed the whole, because it's looking for a DBO by default for that table. There's no DBO, so it needed the schema name here. Now, where is that stored procedure? Well, in this case, that stored procedure, I had created it under this AdventureWorks 2012. Okay, but I didn't put in the schema or brackets or the database name, because when I did that, it would not work. Okay, and that's one of the idiosyncrasies of this whole thing. And it took me a while to get this to work right. So I try to follow kind of what they're doing here. And kind of like SP help, they just put it in nice and plain, use a DBO schema, and then it works. And then you have to make sure your windows are closed, you reopen them. Okay, now this will only work in the databases where I have that exact same name. Okay, so if I go up to something other than that, like report server temp DB, and I go to execute, go in. Let's see. Let's grab a view. No views here. Okay, let's try something else. So let's go into weather, and we're just going to, well, let me just do a regular select from there, right? And there's a weather. I'm going to give the fully qualified name. I'm going to press Control F1, and notice I get an error. Well, that's because I don't have that stored procedure in that database, right? If I go up here and I take that stored procedure and copy it into that database, so let's go up to where it was, AdventureWorks 2012 I had it. So I come in here and I see hotkeys. I'm going to create it, a script. I'm going to get rid of this guy here, and I'm going to change my where I'm sitting into, what was that name of that thing we were just in? We were in weather, right? So now I'm going to create it in weather. All right. So it's always, it's looking for hotkey select. So what I'm envisioning is it takes whatever database you're sitting in and looks for it there, and that's how it works. So I'm going back down to weather. Now, if I go over to weather here, right, this was open. This session was open before I added the procedures. So this might not work. I might have to open the window again. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Control F1, but it did work. Okay, there's another one called car sales where I have a database. It also has that in the procedure. Hotkey, select table, same exact one. So if I come in here and I look for, let's see that view. Let's see what that looks like. So there's the view, and it goes on colors. So I'm going to do Control F1, and there it is. Okay, so it's a little finicky, this saving the hotkeys and that kind of thing. If you see a good post, a good link on how to do this better, please put it in the comments. I'd appreciate it. But I think that's what I've learned from it, and it was a little bit painful just to get this thing to work right. But once I understood that it doesn't seem to like brackets, it doesn't want a fully qualified name. When you set it up in here, you need to be plain Jane when you set this up here, just like that. No brackets, no schema, no database name. Okay. I also tried to set it up in master, hoping that it would go to master and I could only set it up once and it will go everywhere. That didn't work either. So the key was to set up give it the name of the stored procedure, set it up in each one of your databases. You could also set it up in model to begin with, right? So every time you set up, if you really like it, so that way every time you create a database, you know, it will create in that new database, right? Because that's what model does. So take it for what it's worth, but there's some other really neat things you might be able to do with this and get very sophisticated with that store procedure. Let's look at that store procedure, by the way. I don't know why we looked at it. So let's take a look at it before we leave this session. And so I go to car sales. I'm going to go into hotkey. Let's just go into modify. So all this is doing here is I'm taking a table name, but it's an nvarchar data type. I call it table name. And in here, I declare a SQL string. I set the SQL string to select top 1000 asterisk from table name. So I concatenate it there. Then I execute it, and that's all it does. So as soon as you hit that Control F1, it comes out here, whatever you're highlighted on, even though it doesn't show it inside the command that we're running to run that hotkey. It takes that first parameter, so it's passed in. The highlighted part is passed into this store procedure, into this variable, into this parameter, and then it executes from there. Okay, so if I wanted to change this, now we're writing car sales, so we're just going to have some fun here just for. This is what happened. Okay, so I'm going to do SP help here, but I can't pull in SQL string. I just push the table name in. So once I push the table name in, like this, and remodify it, right? Okay, now when I come over and I run things here, and I highlight DB colors, and I press Control F1, we should see both. So see, we see the top 1,000, and we see the help. Okay, so like I said, it's a little fickle. You have to play with it until you get it right, and then you keep it. So for this will help me a lot because that way I don't have to do it. I probably want to put some counts in here, maybe some window functions, to give me a little. I want to know those row counts. But I also like to see a little bit of the detail, not the whole table. And I might even do some group bys, but you can go as sophisticated as you want on the store procedure. But again, just getting it to work is a little bit of a nuisance, and you kind of got to get a feel for the rules on it. All right, thanks a lot for listening, and I hope this helps you.